Welcome back, guys, to the final part of this video series where we'll transform this website that we created into a progressive web app. And as you can see, just to give you a demonstration of the website that we created, I'm just going to scroll down to see that this is actually the website that we created. Now, for my original repository, I have this other website here, and the only difference that you'll notice is that if you check the address bar right here on the right is the install icon on my other website right there. Now this install icon is provided by the service worker, which we're going to create, and the manifest.json file, which is the file that holds all the icons for the web app. Now if I click the install button right here, just to give you a feel of how the application will look, you see that it gives me an install prompt, and when I click install, it will open in a new window like a native desktop application. And you can see right there, it opens full screen with the feel of a desktop application, just as it would with all the functionality that we had on the website. And everything that we cached is right there, so that it provides offline functionality. Now if I'm to switch off my network right there, let me just switch it off. If I switch it off and I scroll to the top, you can see that when I go to the login page is still available, and when I go to the sign up page, it's still available, and when I go back home, it's also still available even though I'm offline. So that is the power of service workers, and that's why progressive web apps are slowly taking over the internet, because they are able to provide native application functionalities. Okay, so let me just open my GitHub repository right there and go over a few things. Now I updated my logo folder right here with correct widths and heights for the logos, and just open this. Let me just open it. The logos that we're actually going to be needing in this project are the logo 144, 192, and 512. You don't really have to have these other logos, but I recommend that you just grab them. I resized these logos because they were off by like 1 pixel each, and for the manifest file they all need to be square, otherwise the application won't be installable. Now this is my main repository, and this is the repository that we created in the video. So I can just close this down. If you missed any of the videos that I uploaded, I placed a YouTube link in the readme, which you can find at the bottom right here. When you click this, it will go to the playlist that I uploaded the video on, and of course this is the main website that we have. So right away, let's get to it. Alright guys, so this is the folder that we created the other day with nothing unchanged, as you can see, because I wanted to create everything from scratch by adding the manifest.json file as well as the service worker file. Now I'm going to do that right away, but I'm going to go over a few things first. One thing is that in order to understand working with service workers, you actually have to know some basics about JavaScript promises, because we're going to be using the fetch API, which always returns a promise, and you also have to know their syntax. Another thing is that service workers and the manifest.json file must always have the scope of the root of your website. In this case, I'm just going to place them in my dist folder, because this is the folder that has all the JavaScript functionality as well as the CSS and the HTML, of course. And I'm not going to do a custom install prompt for my application, because it's going to take up much more time. But I just want you to know that you can have a custom install prompt, and I'm going to show you what that means once we have created our service worker and we have tested that it's working. Okay, so right away, let me just go to my dist folder and create a manifest.json file like that, and also create a service worker.js, which I'm going to call sw.js. Now in my manifest.json file, I'm going to need a few things. And of course, you know, JSON is a file of key value pairs, and the first thing that we're going to need is short name like that, which I'm going to call Grater, and the name for our application, I'm going to say Grater image gallery like that. And then we'll need the icons that we're going to use in the application, and this is going to be an array of objects where we're going to need the source of the images, and in this case it's going to be app1 folder into images slash let me just confirm what they're called, slash, this is logo-192.png like that. And then for the sizes, we also need the size of the image, and this image is 192 pixels by 192 pixels. And for the type of the image, this is an image slash png like that. Now because we're only going to need 2 of these, I'm just going to grab this and copy it down one more time and change this. Let me just grab this like this, change this to 512, and that's really all the icons that we'll need. And I'm going to go outside of this array, and we're going to need a few more things like the start URL for the application, and I'm just going to place dot, which will start it in the root of the website. And we're also going to need the display for the application, and for the display I'm going to say standalone, which in this case it will make it open like a native application on an Android phone or on a desktop, of course. And another thing we're going to need is the theme color, which we are going to go with our orange color. And just before I go a bit, we're also going to need the background dash color or underscore, sorry. And for the background color, I just want a very light gray, and I'm going to say F1 like that. Now let me just grab our theme color from my style CSS right there, .scss I mean, and I'm just going to say just place it right there like that. And once we have done this, all we need to do now is to link this manifest.json file into our HTML files, and we'll be done with this folder. We are actually with this file, I mean, we're actually not going to touch it again. And for this index HTML, I'm just going to link it below here, and I'm going to say link my manifest file like that. Because it's in the root of my directory, it's actually, we don't need to go any slashes or into any folders like that, as you can see. The next thing I like to do is link it also in my login, and I'm going to do that. And in my sign up, I'm going to also link it, and then you can actually get on with the service worker. For the service worker, there's a block of code that I'm just going to paste in, because I think it will be quite hard for me to explain and write at the same time. So I'm just going to copy it in, and then I'm going to explain what it does. And before I forget, let me just link this service worker file in my HTML. I'm going to say script source, and it's in serviceworker.js like that. I'm going to grab this in my login, go to the bottom, place it there, and in my sign up, go to the bottom and place it there like that. Now if I open this with live server, just to show you that it's reading the manifest file, when you come to inspect and go to the application tab right there, when you click service worker, you can see that it's reading manifest.json file, which is available. Now for installability, if you check just down here, let me just squeeze this. When you check down here, it says no matching service worker detected for installability, which means we have to add a service worker so that the application is actually installable. And if you read further along, it will say something like, check that the scope of your service worker for the current page encloses the scope and start URL for the manifest. So what that means is that it's like reiterating that make sure your service worker has the scope of the entire website. So I'm just going to grab to jump into the service worker file and close these out. So the first thing that we're going to do here is check for whether the browser can install, okay, not can install, but check whether the browser supports service workers. Alright guys, sorry about the weird cut, there was a ruckus outside. So I was saying that we check first for whether the browser supports service workers like that, and it's a simple check. So we're going to use an if statement, and we're going to say if service worker in navigator like that, meaning if the service worker is present in the navigator object, and if it is set to true, then we want the navigator dot service worker like that, we want it to register, and we say we want it to register, and we want to register our service worker file like that .js. And then there's an optional parameter here called what's it called? It's called scope, which can do that, and we'll say for the for our root folder, but this really isn't necessary. It's optional, so I'm not going to place it in there like that. And I'm going to say, because this method actually returns a promise, I'm going to say that then, and we're going to say register like that, and place an arrow function, and we say that we want it to log to the console, and then I'll say that service worker registered. Now if this fails, then I want to catch an error. Saying, did I place that syntax correctly? I want to catch, no, it's two of them. Okay, an error, if I can just spell it. I want to catch an error and log it to the console and say service worker not registered. And once you do that, and we load the page and go to the console, you can see service worker registered, and that's a good start. Now once you have registered our service worker, you see the warning here changes to page does not work offline, and that is what we're going to deal with in our next blocks. And we're going to say we want to add an event listener to the service worker to listen for an install event on the application. So we're going to say self.add event listener, and we're listening for an install event like that, and we're calling a function called e, and we're going to say place an arrow function first of all. Now one thing to note is that event has been deprecated, so it's much better to use e. And we're going to say that we want to use a JavaScript promise, and we're going to say wait until. Now of course you can substitute all this and use async await, but I think I'm more proficient in using this syntax, so I'm just going to stick with it for now. And we're waiting for caches to open like that, and once we're open, we want to call that cache v1 like that, and we say then we want the cache, and we're going to place another arrow function and say we want to return a cache.addAll method. Now in this add all method, this is where we're going to be placing all the files that we want to be cached in our application, and I'm just going to start with the root of the root folder like that, and I'm going to copy this down a bit like that. Okay, not so much, because I also want to add images. Let me just copy two of them like that, and maybe a third one. Now for this second one, I want to cache my CSS file, this style.min.css. So I'm going to go inside there, and I'm going to say it's in the CSS file folder, and it's called style.min.css. And the next I'd like to cache is my images. Now because this is going to be used mostly on phones, I'd like my to only cache the images that are going to be displaying on phone. And if you remember, for when I was adding the media queries, I disabled 6 of the images on a mobile phone. So I'm just going to need 6 of them, which will start from antiquity store to the event like that, and only cache 6 of them. Well, probably 7, because I also need the bike from my landing page. Okay, so I'm going to cache my images like that, and I'm going to cache antiquity stores, antiquities store.jpg, and now I'm going to copy this down about 6 more times, 1 2 3 4 5 6. Okay, and I'm going to cache my bike.jpg, and then next I'm going to cache bluecar.jpg, and then next I'm going to cache cassette.jpg. Next is old school parking lot like that. The next is phone.jpg, and the final one is queen like that. Now once you have cached our images, we also want to add our JS file for functionality, so I'm going to copy this down, and I'm going to say in my JS folder I want the main.js file, and then I also want to now cache the HTML files, of course. So let me do this. Let me say it's in the root and it's called index.html. Don't forget that. Then copy this down, and the next I'd like to cache is the login.html, and the sign up.html, and I just want to cache the manifest.json as well, and I want to cache the service worker.js as well, like that. And that's all we'll need for our install event. Now let me just add a comment and say listen for the install event. Now for this next block of code, I'm actually going to copy it in, and then I'm going to explain what it does. So what it does really is fetch new resources, update the cache, and save the resources. So give me a moment to copy it in. Alright, yes, so this is the block of code that I've pasted in, and as you can see, we're listening for the fetch event. So let me just explain what all this does. What this does is that if you are loading new resources to your service worker, to your application, then this block of code is going to look for the resources from your server. It's going to download them, and once it downloads them, it's going to cache them to, you can see it, we are opening the same cache again. It's opening it's going to save it to the same cache as the cache that you have up here. And once it does that, it's going to save it for the next time that you open your application, so that you don't have to keep on fetching the same thing over and over again. And if it gets conflicting values, then it's going to delete one. Now you can see that I have here caches.matchoffline.html. This is in case your application is offline, then you can provide a custom offline page, but you can see I haven't created it here, so I think that's going to be a challenge for you, and then you can test it out. Now let me just save it, and once I save it, you can see that service work is registered. You can see that it's the error that it can't be installed is off, and you can see that now it has the install button right here. And if you did it correctly, you can say update on reload, and once you reload it like that, you can see the service work is registered. And then once you install it, hopefully it installs. You can see it installing on localhost. Close this down, and you can see the application is here, and this is it. And it looks very nice. It works offline, and it is installed on your machine like that. Let me just uninstall it by coming here and saying delete that. And yeah guys, that's all it is. Now just to mention what I was saying earlier about a custom install button, instead of having that, I have to open this again. Instead of having this install button here for mobile phones, usually it appears on the bottom, like as some kind of Google notification. It appears on the bottom, but if you don't want that, you can actually prevent default. You can actually prevent that from happening, and then you can create your custom install button. I'm going to leave a link in the description for the MDN docs, not really the MDN docs, but for the web dev docs, where you can find further resources for that. You can take that up as a challenge, and you can transform this to be something much better. And of course, you can add this to your portfolio. I'm not going to be adding this to mine, but you can add it to your portfolio. I'm giving you permission to add it to your portfolio. So thank you guys for watching, and remember to like and subscribe. And in case you saw a mistake anywhere, or you think I should improve somewhere, please leave a comment, and I'll be reading all the comments, and hopefully I'll be trying to reply to all of them. So do welcome back, and I'll see you in the next video.